Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Environment and Regeneration Committee. This meeting has been held remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and the Data Protection Act of 2018. We broadcast and record council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with council published policies available through the council's website. Members of the council are reminded that they should follow the council's established meetings protocols, including around the use of the chat facility, and that comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Okay, do we have any apologies, substitutions and declarations of interest?
Convener, there are a number of apologies. Councillor Brooks with Councillor Wilson substituting, Councillor Curley with Councillor Reynolds substituting, and Councillor Robertson with Councillor Daisley substituting. We'll move to a roll call.
Okay.
And the following councillors, please indicate if they're present at the meeting. Councillor Cassidy.
Chamber.
Councillor Clockerty. Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Daisley. Councillor Daisley. Councillor Jackson.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
I'm attending remotely to try and reduce my carbon emissions.
Councillor McCormick.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Quinn.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Are there any declarations of interest? No.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so welcome to a special meeting of the Environment and Regeneration Committee. Special welcome to James and Sandra and David, who are not normally here. It's nice to see two of the three of you and the other one remotely. So we've got a one-item agenda today, which is the Net Zero Action Plan.
Sorry, can I interrupt? James says he's in the meeting. I think you need to call him again. James Daisley.
Okay. Colin, have you got one there?
I can see he's in the meeting.
Right. Okay, you see there, James, that's fine. So James attending remotely. Okay, so we've got the Net Zero Action Plan. Now, Eddie, you want to take us through the paper, or Stuart, you want to take us through it?
I'll start, convener, if that's okay. Can I first of all take the opportunity to apologise to the committee for my lack of attendance in the chambers, but I finally succumbed to COVID. In the event of me losing my connection, Mr Montgomery will take over to allow the committee to continue. Convener, through you. In October of last year, the committee approved the Council's Net Zero Strategy 2021-2045, which sets out Inverclyde Council's route map to achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2045, with an interim reduction of 72.5% by 2031. As a local authority, members will recall that in 2019-20, 91% of our greenhouse gas emissions came from building energy use and transport. They were 77% and 14% respectively, with generated waste, street lighting and water and wastewater making up the balance. In order to achieve the appropriate reductions, the plan before you today, which is a 5-year action plan, requires participation from across the whole of the Council. The plan has sought to capture and collate current activities that are funded from existing budgets, and to also identify new actions which will require additional funding and/or resources. The actions proposed within the 22-26 period requiring additional funding and resources focus on the following areas: reducing energy use in buildings through improved data collection, controls and targeted energy audits, reducing energy demand in buildings through increased building-based renewable generation, introduction of low zero carbon heating within smaller scale assets, and fleet decarbonisation. This will be achieved by a mixture of adaptation, i.e. changing the way in which we do things, along with offsetting, and our offsetting will be focused on the Clyde Muirshiel Regional Park with the within peatland restoration and potential forestation. Convener, recognising the significant challenges which we face as a local authority in respect of finance, this is a very measured, appropriate approach. We recognise that the technology is not advanced in all areas as is suggested. We have reflected upon that, but that said, if we're going to reduce our carbon footprint, we need to get on with it. Appendix 1 contains the action plan. Appendix 2 identifies project summaries along with costs, including the estimated spend profile. Committee are asked to approve the Net Zero Action Plan 22-27, agree that an allocation of funding be considered as part of the budget setting process and the draft 23-26 capital programme. Note that further approvals will be sought for a number of projects within the action plan, subject to a detailed feasibility study and confirmation of the relevant capital and revenue cost impacts, including carbon reduction improvements. And noting that the progress of the action plan will be reported annually to your committee convener throughout the lifetime of the plan. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Stephen?
Thanks, convener, and thanks for Stuart for introducing the report. Very much welcome the fact that we've now got this action plan. I don't profess to be an expert in the individual measures that are contained within the action plan, but I think it is important that we seek to make significant progress over the next 5 years with respect to net zero. It's certainly a priority for the administration. I'm sure it's a priority for all groups within the council, and I definitely think that despite the financial challenges we face, we need to make a significant allocation of funding to take this action plan forward. We obviously want to maximise the external funding that we can attract as well, and obviously would seek assurances from Stuart and his team that we're seeking to do that. It would be helpful to know what sort of engagement we've had with other local authorities around the sort of actions that we've got, and what sort of learning that we have got from other local authorities, and what opportunities there are, I suppose, to continue to work with other authorities to learn and collaborate in terms of how we take this agenda forward, because obviously we're all trying to take the agenda forward. And this action plan and the strategy we've got is primarily focused on obviously what we can do as a local authority, but there is clearly a wider agenda in terms of what the community can do, and also what our other public sector and private sector partners can do. So there has been discussions through the Inverclyde Alliance about how we maybe have an Inverclyde wide approach to net zero and addressing the climate emergency, and it would be useful to maybe get a view from Stuart as to how potentially we can take that sort of joint partnership working forward as well.
Okay, Stuart?
Series of questions, convener. I can give Councillor McCabe absolute comfort that if there are funding opportunities which are available from external funding sources, then we will maximise those. And indeed, we've had initial discussions about the Clyde Mission Heat programme, whereby we're looking at district heating systems for Central Greenock, very much in their infancy, but these projects will require significant capital investment, and they'll come back as individual projects. But it gives hopefully the committee comfort that there is engagement taking place, and there will be continuing for engagement to take place seeking external funding. Mr Montgomery, who's the author of this report, has had extensive engagement with his peers within the Heads of Property Group, with regards to buildings and how others are doing this, and we believe that there is absolutely an opportunity to learn from others and to maximise the positives that can come out of carbon reductions. Councillor McCabe's absolutely correct in terms of the wider agenda. We believe that the Alliance Board is the location for that discussion to take place, recognising that partners in the first instance all have their individual plans, and it's how we maximise the interventions of all of those individual plans, how we minimise the impact on Inverclyde, and then how we then roll out, Councillor McCabe, a wider Inverclyde action plan, looking at the benefits for the wider area. You recognise from the plan there are some of the actions which are Inverclyde wide type actions, as well as actions which are specific for Inverclyde Council, and it's because we don't have an Inverclyde wide area plan in place yet. The best place for these actions is to sit within our action plan, but as this action plan develops over the course of the 5 years, we would anticipate that there will be some moves and changes, and hopefully that answers your questions.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. That's helpful.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. John? Sorry, John,
Yeah, that's a bit late off here because some of the questions that I was actually going to raise have actually been answered. One of the ones I was actually just looking at here was, again, working with other local authorities, and it was basically just to see what plans they had, and it was really just to look at the good practice. And I was also looking at the aspect of funding. I do note there that it says here that the studies were to be funded utilising a proportion of the balance of the remaining climate change earmark reserve. And we just wondered whether that climate change funding had actually came via Scottish Government funding or indeed UK Government funding, and if the money had not been used up by a specific day, whether there was clawback that we could obviously lose out on, which is something that I'm sure that no one would wish to see. So I'm quite happy with the response that I've had from Stuart. Thank you.
Stuart, anything to add to that?
Through you, convener, I wondered if Eddie wanted to make any comments with regards to his heads of property network, and whether Matt had any clarification in respect of where the money came from for the £300,000 or £350,000, I think it was originally, and whether there's any likelihood of any clawback.
Okay, Eddie.
Okay, thanks, Convener. Yeah, certainly I've been working with my colleagues in the Heads of Property Network and also through forums like Hub West Scotland, who are looking to form working groups to look into this area of activity, because all authorities are faced with the same challenges and we're all working towards the same goals. So we're working closely with our neighbouring authorities in particular to understand what their approach to their buildings is, and how they're going about that. We're doing very similar things to those authorities. There's nobody doing anything remarkably different, although they're all involved in a certain amount of pilot activity on different projects, such as the Queen's Quay water source heat pump that Western Partnership are looking at. But in terms of the general challenges for their assets, it's all very similar approaches that people are taking. So we're working with those authorities and with the groups to make sure that we're learning from everybody's experiences and that we're not all going down a different road. Hopefully that answers that.
Okay,
That's fine. That's what thank you.
Okay, thanks. David?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. I'll use the royal we because Graham and I discussed this. We wonder if the council has got problems at the moment in different areas. We wonder if the council's got the capacity to handle this particular project. When we go through it, you nearly get 50 pages of the action plan and appendix, which involves a lot of work. And am I correct, Stuart, in saying that we're only going to employ one extra employee to do this?
Sure.
Through you, convener. Mr. Montgomery is in the middle of a property services restructure. He's getting to the end of it. there is a number of posts which have been identified which will link to carbon. And indeed, at the corporate management team this morning, there was even a suggestion of a further post being allocated as part of an admin role, looking at how we maximise bill utilisation. So it's not going to be one member of staff, Councillor Wilson. It will be a number of members of staff, and indeed there will be a team of staff, and it's also bringing existing staff together to work together within property services in order that we are able to deliver this programme, recognising that we don't necessarily have the expertise within. Projects will come. I mean, for example, if you were to do a water-based heat pump in the Clyde, property services don't have the necessary expertise to be able to do that, and we bring in external consultants to advise us on it.
It was supplementary.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's helpful, Stuart. I think it would help if that had been contained in this report, because you've added things to it that weren't in existence when we went through it. And I think as councillors, we need to know the whole picture if we're discussing our position. We were very much of the view we're going to put forward a motion to hold this back for a couple of years till we felt in better shape as a council to be able to handle it. But what you've said has helped. I'd just like another question, thank you.
Okay.
We're a wee bit concerned about the action plan. The whole thing is net zero action plan 22 to 27. Now we know that is part of heading towards an objective of 2045. But I think to have a headline like that, it'll make the public might well think that we're going to achieve net zero by 27, which we're not. And I think the headline should be amended, Stuart. What's your view on that?
Sure.
Through you, convener, clearly our strategy is to 2045. That is what the committee have approved. We believe that there will be a series of action plans during the life of the strategy, Councillor Wilson, and we've made this one effectively for the life of the council. Recognising the challenges that we will face on an ongoing basis to achieve the net zero aspiration of carbon zero by 2045, we felt that because of the emerging technologies, this was the right type of duration to present to members, as opposed to trying to present something to members where the technology doesn't fully exist at this moment in time. We can be absolutely clear. We could, for example, call it action plan number 1 for the initial period of 22-27, if that would provide members of the public with any clarity.
It provided me with clarity. Thank you.
Okay.
No more questions.
Okay, anybody else want to come in? Any other questions? Don't see anything on the chat. We're quite happy to agree the recommendations at 2.1. Great. Okay. Sorry.
Convener, just for a matter of clarity, Mr Thompson has confirmed that the £350,000 was council funded and that there is no clawback. It is sitting as an earmarked reserve. Sorry to have interrupted, Convener.
Okay. Thanks, Stuart. And thanks for your attendance, Stuart. I know you've not been feeling very well, so thanks for attending, albeit remotely. It's appreciated. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Okay.
Yeah, speedy recovery, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot now.